Welcome, everybody, to another Friday night, December 1st, 2024. David Green Real Estate live on YouTube. Welcome. Do us a favor. If you're coming in right now, watching live, drop in the chat where you are watching from, where you're hanging out tonight. I am here in Northern California, and we got David hanging out with us tonight as well. What's going on, David?
Hey. Oh, there we go. That should be a little bit better. Hey.
Oh, yeah.
It's been a minute since we've been doing this because I've been traveling, but I'm glad we're back. How has your day been today?
It's glad to have you back. My day has been good. For those of you that follow me or watch me on Instagram, I've got a goose. But you know what, David? We are actually going to be giving our goose away this weekend. So I'm looking. Yeah, it's too much work.
I was wondering if that might be the thing because the ROI on this goose simply wasn't great. And there's a lesson here. If you want to live a happy life, make sure that the ROI to others in your life is positive.
Yes.
Right? Because your goose was brought in to protect your chickens and then didn't do that, right? Was it a fox that was trying to get at him or a dog?
Yeah, but technically we haven't lost any chickens under its watch.
But that was not because of the goose. It was just
right. Yeah.
luck,
there was a fox that came in. That was kind of the reason we got it.
Right. There you go. And it didn't do anything, but it does require a lot of work on your part to kind of oversee everything. The chickens are a bit automated. They come in, they go out.
Exactly.
You have a place to protect them with a door that opens and closes on its own. They know what to do. Well, the goose is manually required attention. So if your kids are watching this, I'm sure that they're probably a little upset about it because it was a cute goose, especially when it was little. But you're setting the goose loose.
Yes. And we are setting it loose. And I'll tell you what, one thing is it's going to a better place. It's actually going to have a good place to hang out, a good place it'll actually have a pond where it can swim. So we're looking forward to its new life. But that being said, enough goose talk. Let's talk a little bit about real estate. First of all, before we do that, let's see who we have here watching with us tonight. We got Kevin in Lakeland, Florida. Ken out in Tampa. Duder Manling says this is his first live stream. Well, thanks for joining us. Do us a favor. If you are getting some good stuff out of this, do us a favor and hit the like button, but also subscribe so you can come back for more of these. He is watching from Boise. Did you know you're supposed to say Boise and not Boise, David?
No, but you are always the one that teaches me this. You taught me about Louisville, not Louisville.
Yep.
And now Boise, not Boise.
Yep.
I believe you recently asked me in Kauai why we say Brazil instead of Brazil, right?
Yes.
It's S.
Yes.
And I know that Colombians get upset because they say it should be said with an O, not a U. It's not Colombia, it's Colombia.
Colombia.
We have here that can confirm this.
I would like to hear that. I think the reason I do that and pick that stuff up is because I want to be a part of the group, right? I don't want to be seen as an outsider. So I probably have some like deep psychological need to be around people and be accepted.
What's wrong with me that I don't have that?
Because you're normal. You're just a regular dude. You don't have the problems I have.
I don't know that your wife likes it though. Like most times the women in my life get irritated that I don't have that like fit in with the group gene where like I'll say it the wrong way or I'll forget to bring something and I'll come to the party or whatever the case is. Like, I don't know.
That's because it's probably just because you're focused on other things. You know, you got your mind in a million different places and you're focused on big world problems. You're not worried about the small things that everybody else is worried about.
That could be a good point, right? The stress in my life prevents me from being able to worry about those things.
Yeah. You're like Mr. Oppenheimer, right? The guy who made the atomic bomb. Like he was worried about, okay, what's this bomb going to do to the rest of the world and how is it going to affect society for the rest of, our lives, as opposed to like what color he should pick for the paint on his house.
That's it. Well, that makes me feel a lot better because you made me the protagonist in the story, not the socially awkward one. So that's why I need people like you to remind me the right way to say things. Curious, who here has gone a long period of time saying things the wrong way and was then corrected to learn that they were saying it the wrong way the entire time and had to feel stupid? Is that something that you should correct in other people? Should you tell them when they are saying something incorrectly so they have a chance to fix it? Or should you allow them to continue saying it the wrong way, right? It's like there's something in your teeth. Are you going to tell somebody that there's something in the teeth? I actually had a conversation today with someone I thought was going to be more difficult than it was. He is considering going into business with another person, like partnering with them. And I happen to know that person he's considering going into business with is not a good human being, just put simply. Never heard good things said about him. Many people have had bad experiences with this person. And I had the awkward conversation where I just said, hey, man, I don't know a nice way to say it, so I'm just going to tell you, I don't think you should do this. And here's why. Here's the evidence. This is all of the things that have caused me to come to the conclusion. Obviously, you're going to make up your own mind. But this is what I'm thinking, and here's why. These were all of the details that I had. And if I was you and I was going to do it, I would definitely structure it in a way that you could cut out the cancer rather than need to take chemotherapy on the whole partnership. So I know that feeling. You're just like, oh, they're going to get mad. They're going to blame me. They're going to call me a hater. But you got to, at the end of the day, say, would you want someone to do it for you?
Well, I think it depends on how you say it to them, too. If you come at them and like, dude, what are you doing? This is the worst decision you're ever making. Or if you come at it from a way of like, hey, man, I just want to like share this with you. This is a big concern of mine. Let me share an angle that I have. I think that's a big part of it. And these types of conversations always scare us, but don't they always end up being so much better on the back end than we thought it was going to turn out?
You hope so, right? You hope the person respects you for it and sees the good in it. But I'm just wondering if there's anybody here who has had opportunities in their life to give someone advice or let them know, like, hey, you got some food in your teeth, whatever that thing may be. And if they take it or if they don't, let us know in the comments if that's you. But on that note, Kyle, I know you got some stuff picked out for us to get into. There's been an interesting couple of weeks with the economy. This is by far the weirdest world that I've ever lived in. If you think about the things that regularly cross your attention in the news, like UFOs are no longer considered to be a crazy topic. Okay. Like the conversation I heard the other day was like, aliens are definitely living here, but which ones are they? Like, it's just accepted. And we're not even like talking about that very much, right? Like you and I had our leadership meeting today and we discussed some of the changes that are happening in the overall economy because that affects us as real estate agents and real estate investors because we have to know where people are making their money and what the economy is like in order to know who to serve and who to choose as tenants and where to invest. And it's not that long before driving cars are just going to be the norm and we don't even talk about it. You know, I think the example that you and I gave was there was a time where people that could code and write code as little as 5 years ago was all the rage in the most expensive market in the country, which was the San Francisco Bay Area. And you were saying like, yeah, now coders all need jobs. There's not very many people out there hiring them because AI developed that quickly. So this is just a crazy, crazy time that we're living in. And in my opinion, like more than ever, you need to be paying attention to what's going on so that you can make the right moves.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's really what we're going to talk about tonight. And we actually talked about it last night on the Spartan League. We had a little bit of a debate about that because there is some people that say, listen, there's always ups and there's always down. This is just part of the cycle. This is part of the process. But never have we lived in a society where things are progressing as fast as they are, especially with technology, with policy change, with global pandemics happening. So it's not about, okay, well, just wait for the next wave to come your way. It's about recognizing and seeing the future that things are changing quickly, and we need to be, if not on top of it, we need to be at least right behind it, right, to where we can make the changes and we're not caught with our pants down, so to speak. So our first video, we're actually going to be talking about housing market predictions for 2024, what that looks like. We've been hearing the word crash for a very long time. We haven't seen it yet, right? So I'm going to take this first video. We're going to pop it up, and we'll be back here in a minute to discuss.
Alerts, there has been no housing market crash. This is a 5-year chart of home prices from Redfin. The median sale price of a home in October was $414,633. Compared to 12 months ago, home prices have gone up by 2.2%. I know that some people will say that if home prices go up by 2.2%, that's a housing market crash. I don't, but some people will. I don't know about you, but those are the stats. Let me zoom in a little bit for you so you can see the month over month change. So this is a 3-year chart. Month over month, the median home price went up by $2,765. That means that month over month, home prices went up by 0.7%. So home prices are up year over year. Home prices are up month over month. I did make an updated prediction that home prices will fall during the winter. Anyways, I'm saying that home prices will go down in the upcoming months ahead because of seasonality. On top of that, the higher interest rate environments will grind down the economy. But I'm telling you that it's not going to be a housing market crash. This is just going to be your typical seasonality and the slowing economy. And listen, I have to say this in every single real estate video, because if I don't, then we're going to get that guy in the comments. And so many of you already know what I'm talking about. I'm intentionally being redundant. You know what I'm talking about? That person in the comments that says, the real estate market is already crashing. Haven't you seen that home prices are already down 20% in my area? Haven't you seen Phoenix? So some people clearly do not understand the definition of median home prices or national averages. Home prices may be down a good amount in your area or your city. I don't deny that. But have you seen how much home prices are up in Naples, Florida? Or how about Albany, New York? Or how about Newark? So if home prices are down 20% in your area, that means that home prices are up by 22% in a different area. I didn't say that for one real estate video, and the comments section paid the price. It was just a disaster. So let's move on to housing inventory. So this is a 3-year chart. There are currently 1.55 million homes listed for sale in the US. It's basically unchanged from last month. So as you can see from the chart, year over year, the number of homes for sale is down by 8.7%. So there are less sellers. Let me zoom out a little bit for you. This is a 5-year chart. Look at how many homes were for sale pre-pandemic. In October of 2018, October 2019, it was in the 2.3 million range. Right now, we're at 1.5 million. So that is a 33% drop compared to pre-pandemic. So listen, I want to just give it to you straight. If you're rooting for a housing market crash, then this is not good for you. Because remember that if you want a housing market crash, then you need more sellers than there are buyers. So you need a fire sale type of situation with millions of panic sellers. You need homeowners with the mentality just saying, I need to sell my home right now. I will take whatever lowball offer that you're willing to give me. That was the type of situation back in 2010. Back in 2010, there were 2.9 million foreclosures in that year alone. That's a massive exodus. So keep in mind that right now, there are 1.5 million homes that are listed for sale. Imagine 2.9 million foreclosures in 1 year. That's how you get a housing market crash. And I'll tell you, just straightforward, that's not happening right now. There's less sellers right now compared to a year ago. But just look at these homeowners right now. Why won't they sell their homes? These homeowners think they're so cool with their 3 to 4% mortgage interest rates. You know, it must be nice, right? But look at it from their perspective. Why would they want to sell and give up the 3 to 4% mortgage interest rates and just swap it out for 7% mortgage interest rates? And why would they want to look for a home in a market with limited inventory? You saw the homes that are available for sale. The numbers are just at suppressed levels. And why would they want to pay 30 to 40% more compared to pre-pandemic prices? And on top of that, it's just the hassle of moving. So no, these people, they're not going to list their homes for sale unless they really have to. For these reasons, you have less sellers. And on the flip side, you also have less buyers because of higher prices and higher mortgage interest rates. So look at the mortgage interest rates. The average on the 30-year fixed is still above 7%. Okay, so you have less buyers, you have less sellers, and naturally you have less homes sold. So take a look at this 5-year chart of homes sold. As you can see, it's at depressed levels. Take a look at the same months in prior years, which I've circled in red, and the blue line is where we're today. The transaction volume is down significantly. down 6.7% compared to last year, down more than 30% since 2020 and 2021, and down more than 20% compared to pre-pandemic. Now, I want you to look at this. This is a 5-year chart of the percentage of homes that are selling above list price. 31.7% of homes are selling above list. This is almost 1 out of every 3 homes. That number is trending down, but it's still higher compared to 12 months ago by 2.9%. But this still needs to fall into the 20% range to be comparable to pre-pandemic levels. So historically speaking, it's still a bit elevated. Please keep this in mind when you're buying or selling your home. And I want to show this to you because I haven't shown you this for the past 6 months or so. This chart from Redfin shows which states people are moving out of and where people are going. There's still a lot of outflow from California. New York is up there too. Florida is still the #1 destination, but what I found interesting is that migration to Texas is slowing down. So personally, I'm thinking about moving down south because these winters are just terrible in Chicago. Now, I told you this before, and we actually got a little taste of it. So I want to tell you what happened. So the Federal Reserve indicated that they're done raising interest rates. That's not for sure. It's not a guaranteed thing, but that's the message that they gave off. That caused interest rates on government bonds to go down. They fell hard. The most important one to pay attention to is the 10-year yield. So that happened, and then interest rates on the 30-year fixed mortgage began to fall. So you know how interest rates on the 30-year fixed about a month ago? They were around 8%. Well, the Federal Reserve did that, and then interest rates fell. As interest rates fell, mortgage applications surged. This is a headline from Bloomberg. U.S. mortgage rates slide sharply, reinvigorating housing demand. So this is what happens when mortgage interest rates fall from 8% to 7%. Can you imagine what's going to happen when mortgage interest rates fall to 5% or 4%? There's going to be a crazy housing market spike. If you're waiting right now for a housing market crash so that you can get a home at a much cheaper price, then I hope that happens for you soon. I really do, because once the Federal Reserve starts lowering interest rates, and that's probably going to happen in 2024, and once they turn the money printers back on, all I can tell you is good luck. You may get a better mortgage interest rate, but how much more expensive will homes be? 10% higher, 20% higher, 30% higher? I mean, it's going to be ridiculous. I honestly don't think that's going to be a big surprise, though, to a lot of people after the fact. Just think about it logically. Even with 8% interest rates, home prices are not crashing. They're actually up by 2% year over year. Do you think that if interest rates fall to 5% to 4%, do you think that will have zero impact on demand? Or do you think that there's going to be more buyers that step in at 5% or at 4%? And I clearly understand that if interest rates fall to, let's just say 4%, that would undo the lock-in effect on the sellers, but lower interest rates will have a bigger impact on demand than it will on supply. Simply because more potential buyers than potential sellers are affected by interest rates. So I want you to keep that in mind, because if you watch my Federal Reserve videos, then you know that the Fed is most likely going to pivot next year in 2024. And that's going to have some serious consequences on the real estate markets. So I already told you my prediction that we're most likely going to see seasonality doing its thing and drag down home prices during the winter. And that might be a good time to capitalize on the situation. If I were looking for a primary residence, I would start shopping right now, because the last time I bought a primary residence, it took some time. It wasn't a quick process. It took some time to find something that I liked and a good deal. It took many months. And I completely understand the supply is limited. I understand that it's slim pickings out there. But that's why I recommend that you do your homework. You start shopping around ahead of time, so that if a good deal does pop up, then you're going to be ready to pounce on that opportunity, because you're going to be familiar and you're going to say things like, oh, I like that neighborhood. I like that school district. I like the proximity to your work, to your family, to your friends, etc. That's just my recommendation. That's all for today. Please subscribe.
Wow. I thought he brought up some really good points at the end. I think like we're starting to hear the word, but I think we're going to hear more of it, especially if we see the Fed decrease the rates and we see the interest rates for mortgages go down to the 6s and then the 5s and then the 4s. And the prices are going to skyrocket. We're going to hear affordability all day long. And I think that's going to be a big issue, is like, if we think it's hard to buy a house right now and it's not very affordable, when the interest rates go down, I think the prices are going to go up and it's going to be even harder to afford a home. And we're going to start living in that world, David, that you've described, which is like one day, just the regular old people, or like my kids down the road, may never even be able to afford a house in the first place.
Yeah, and that's sort of what we've been talking about for a while, where people have been passing up on real estate opportunities because they're not as good as they used to be. And they think that if they wait, something better will come along. Well, that could happen. There's also the possibility that you just don't buy anything at all. And it looks like that's what's happening. I mean, I heard Jeff Bezos is starting a fund to go buy a bunch of single family.
Oh, wow.
Right now, right? Like, and that's another thing, just pops up in the news. We don't even talk about it. But Amazon is going to buy houses now. They're not just going to help you buy houses, like whether it's Amazon or it's through some other means. There's always a person in the comments who's going to tell me that, no, actually, that's not the case. There's a lot of people right now who want to get into the real estate game. So let's not get caught sleeping on it.
What do you think about the advice that, like, if you are thinking about getting into the market now, right now is a good time, right? Before a potential frenzy begins, especially in a low inventory environment like this, right? There is less to choose from. But what are your thoughts on that advice?
Real estate was a thing for a long time that anybody pretty much could do. If you could save a down payment and you could get approved for a loan, you could analyze the deal and you could buy real estate. You said not buy in the bad neighborhood and then wait. Real estate has moved into becoming something that not anyone can do, but a lot of people can do. You have to have some skill. You have to be in a certain financial position to weather a storm. You have to assume you're going to lose some money with the deal the first couple of years you buy it if you're trying to buy in the right area. But if you're in a strong financial position, if you're a good business person, if you've been living beneath your means, you are still someone that can own real estate that's going to make sense. We are likely moving into a realm where real estate is something that only a small number of people can do. You will have to be wealthy. Owning real estate investments will be a flex. It'll be like, I own real estate. People go, oh, like that means you have a lot of money. Much like if someone says, I own a Rolls Royce, I own a Ferrari, I own a Bugatti. It's not just the price of the car, it's how expensive the maintenance is, right? Like the minute someone says that, you know right away, this is an expensive asset. That means the person has a good amount of capital, like they're wealthy. I'm worried that real estate is kind of becoming something like that.
Yeah, that's a good point. And that is the unfortunate situation. We're actually going to talk about that here a little bit later. About high earners right now are actually having a hard time saving money and becoming wealthy. And we're going to take a peek and see what that is all about. But before we do that, we actually have one more thing we're going to move on to, which is landlord situations, right? So this is for people who are landlords. In some areas, the rents are actually going down and landlords are having to come up with creative situations with their tenants. But more than that, what we're seeing is tenants are starting to get a little bit more savvy in terms of being able to negotiate with their landlords. And so I got a video here. This is actually from John Williams, and he talks a little bit about rent reductions, what we're seeing, and what landlords are having to do in order to incentivize their tenants. So here we go.
Rents continuing to fall month after month.
Rent prices are on the verge of going negative.
Apartment rents have been cooling off sharply for several months now.
Insurance and taxes soaring.
More and more homeowners are abandoning home insurance because of skyrocketing costs.
And Jerome Powell making statements like this. He made this morning. Fed Chair Powell calls talks of cutting rates premature and says more hikes could happen. Now, what is going to happen next is going to be the greatest rug pull in the real estate market we've ever seen. I think this opportunity that we're going to be walking into in 2024 and 2025 is going to be a greater opportunity than what we saw in 2010 and 2011 after the great financial crisis. And in this video, I'm going to show you exactly what's going on. If you're a renter, I'm going to show you exactly what you should be doing right now to get your rent reduced. And if you want to invest in real estate, I'm going to show you exactly what you should be doing to position yourself with this massive wealth transfer. Please hit the like button. Hit the like button. YouTube will share this content to educate other people about what's happening in America. And if you'd like to fix your credit, we'd love to help you at my company, greatcreditfast.com. That's greatcreditfast.com. If you have late payments, medical bills, charge-offs, foreclosures, bankruptcies, repossessions, any negative item on your credit report, go to greatcreditfast.com. Click the link in the description just below this video. Schedule a free strategy session. Take a look at this. So right now, landlords are offering tenants incentives. We haven't seen that since 2020. Remember that? All the closures. Landlords started panicking in March and April of 2020, offering first month free, last month free. They were offering a lot of different bonuses to try to attract tenants. Well, now, 5 hours ago, more Dallas landlords offering free rent to entice new tenants. 15 hours ago, Silicon Valley landlords offering incentives to lure tenants. 16 hours ago, new study shows an uptick in landlords offering deals for renters across the Bay Area. 16 hours ago, new study shows an uptick of landlords offering deals, also Bay Area. You start to look at what's happening right here. The rental market is softening so fast in some pockets of the country, landlords have no choice but to offer concessions. Why? Why are they doing this? Well, a couple things are happening right now. This move out are expensive. This is number one. There's a big reason why landlords and operators are laser focused on retaining tenants. It's gotten really expensive to turn a unit, materials and labor, yes, but also more turn due to surge in supply, right? So you're seeing a situation where if a landlord loses a tenant, they don't just lose a month's rent, not the $1,500, $1,800 that, in most markets they command for a one bedroom, but it's going to be the turnover. It's going to be the repairs, the maintenance. It's going to be showing the unit, all the cost that's going to go into it. But one of the really big caveats here is that a lot of landlords have to refinance their debt the next year or two. And that downturn, that revenue that's going to continue to fall, if they can't re-rent it for the same rental rate or more, it's going to make things even harder when it comes time to refinancing these properties. So it's a big problem, especially with 1.1 million apartments currently under construction, which is the 50. Look at this. According to the commercial real estate tracker CoStar, a pace not seen since the 1970s. Now, they sold the American people on a story that we're in the greatest housing shortage ever. And you can't build housing units fast enough. Rents are continuing to soar and nothing's going to change that. And it's a great time to be a real estate investor. A lot of people over leveraging themselves. A lot of people didn't, right? But a lot of people are going to get hurt. And that's what's ultimately going to happen, especially real estate developers. A 50-year high, right? 50-year high. Here's a really good example of this. So troubling signs continue to emerge for commercial real estate in the U.S. This time, it's two apartment developers in a market that's been on fire for the last decade. An unfurnished high-profile apartment development in Tacoma and newly built apartment complex in Kent, Madison Plaza, are headed to auction. Tacoma tracks is a 115-unit project that broke ground in January 2022, while Madison Plaza is a 157-unit complex that opened in September 2022. The two properties facing auction are under the same construction loan, and ground lease agreement was part of the developer's financing vehicle. The properties entered receivership in March. According to the Tacoma New Tribune article, the developer's CEO blamed post-pandemic economic issues, aka interest rates, insurance, and taxes continuing to rise. Labor shortages, right? Exactly, which was mentioned here. And you can't make this stuff up. Cost escalations, inflation, interest rates, making it harder for projects to pencil. This same article highlights the Kidder Matthews executive vice president who stated the following in the report. Once a darling investment market, transaction volume in Pierce County is a ghost of its former self. As such, we expect sales volume declines nearly 75% compared to historic averages. Due to a significant oversupply of new apartments in downtown Tacoma, pricing is softening, especially for newer vintage buildings where fewer investors are in the market and stepping to the plate. According to the trustee attorney, there's no interested bidders for the assets outside of the lender at the moment. Well, if you're a renter right now and you have a lease that's expiring, let's say December 15th, January 15th, February 1st, it might be a good time to Tell the landlord, hey, I might be interested in signing for another 12 months, but maybe we do 1 month free. Maybe we do on the renewal that first month for free, or we do the last month for free. We do something, or we reduce the rent. More than likely, they're going to want to give you a month for free to retain you. And the reason for it is because if they reduce the rent, it's going to impact the net operating income of that building, making it harder for them to get their refinance. And that's going to be an issue for a lot of these landlords. But giving you a month free, they might be able to work that in. And it would make a lot of sense for them to do that, especially if rents are continuing to fall 2, 3, 4%. And in a lot of markets, it's a lot more than that. Here's a really good example of this. Look at what's going on in Oakland. In Oakland, there's 25,000 units, right? All told, this will result in housing stock increase over 25,000 units by 2031. That translates to 25% increase in available housing. What will that do to rents? What would that do to rents? If you have a 25% increase in housing, what that's going to do to rents is rents are going to fall dramatically. That's what that's going to do to rents. This is an issue. Austin, Texas is a really good example. 120,000 apartments in the pipeline. Austin, Texas, for context, has 433,000 total housing units. So this is not apartments exclusively. There's a lot of single-family homes, a lot of owner-occupied properties, 433,000 units. Now let's pretend, for example, they're all rentals. They're all rentals, which they're not. But just for context, this would be an increase of a supply of 27%, right? So it's going to be far greater than that. That's going to be a big problem for a lot of landlords that have rentals in Austin. It's going to be a really, really big problem for them. Look at Boise, Idaho. Boise's median rent fell 0.4% in November to $1,281, and it's down 3.3% in the past 12 months. Most people that are buying in Boise, they were buying at a 5% interest or 5% cap rate, right? They're buying at a 5-6% return maximum. And so when you have rents fall by 3.5% or 3.3% and insurance and taxes rising, these landlords are underwater, a lot of them, right? They're in really, really big trouble. Rents continue falling amid recession concerns. But I share this information because I think it's going to be an incredible time to be a landlord if you understand where this is going to go. So look at what's going on here. You have a situation where you're going to start to see a lot of people looking at rent differently. They're going to be looking at the cost of living, and they're going to say, you know what? Do I really need to go drop $1,800, $2,000, $2,500? No, right? They're going to try to save money. They're going to want to feed themselves first. So what are they going to do? They're going to be moving back with their parents more and more and more. They're going to start to reduce their expenses, bringing in roommates. They're going to start to downsize, go from that nice luxury 1-bedroom to maybe a B-class area or a C neighborhood, getting a studio. They're going to start to do this. And I mean, right now it's already happening. About 1 in 4 millennials are living with their parents currently, right? According to a survey of 1,200 people. Now, look at this. More office building landlords are giving properties back to lenders. You're going to start to see this across office. You're going to start seeing it across multifamily. You're going to start seeing this across all commercial properties in a lot of areas, right? In a lot of areas, especially when you factor in that $1.5 trillion in debt has to be refinanced over the next 18 months. And from now until 2027, $2.7 trillion. So 1 out of 10 commercial properties throughout America has to go back to the lender to get a new loan. A lot of these properties are not going to be able to get that new loan because what's happening, banks are tightening up their lending restrictions. So what do I think is going to happen? I think right now, if you are a renter and you're thinking of, okay, what do I do? I personally would make sure that you're in a really, really good spot financially. Out of high interest rate consumer credit card debt, you have a good credit score, you have a stable job, stable income. You ask yourself, if you're a bank, would you want to lend you money? If the answer is yes, 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 then I would start to understand where you want to invest. What market do you want to invest in, right? Then at that point, I would start looking at products like this. If you're thinking about buying your first property, you do not want to buy a single family home. You do not want to buy that. And the reason for it is because you're committing yourself to an expense. If you were to buy, let's say, a triplex or a fourplex, and you were to take advantage of this new Fannie Mae product, which is 5% down, maybe you buy, let's say, a $400,000 property or $450,000 property. You go put 20 or 25 grand down, maybe 30 grand down, including closing costs, right? If you don't have the money now, but maybe you can reduce a lower rental rate, put yourself in a place where you can save up money for a year, connect all the, dot your I's, cross your T's, get everything squared away over 2024, and put yourself into a position where you can go buy one of these properties. You can live in one of these units. You can collect rent on the adjacent units. Put yourself in a position to where you're going to be isolated from a lot of these headwinds. I personally think what we're going to start to see a trend with tenants is tenants are going to want to leave these massive prison-like units, like these massive complexes, they're going to want to go to, these nice little triplexes, nice fourplex, where they have a little front yard, little backyard, small community, where it's, it feels like a home. I think we're going to start seeing a lot more tenants demand that, and they would rather spend more to have that type of accommodation than to live here to have, a doorman and a pool and, spend $2,500 or $3,000. I don't think people are going to want that. I think people are going to want to go and move into those, those duplexes, triplexes, and fourplexes more and more and more over the year or two to come. I think we're walking into a massive rug pull in the rental market, and this is going to push a lot of landlords out of the business. And I think we're going to start to see, if you look at who owns these duplexes, triplexes, and fourplexes, they're predominantly mom and pop investors, small business owners, and they're in a very, very challenging position right now. What are you going to have? You're going to have a situation of distress, most likely forming, where these people are going to be forced to sell a lot of these assets. So if you're in a position.
So David, what do you think? Do you think massive rug pull, in the words of John there?
When they always lose me. By the way, is my mic better now?
Much better. Yeah.
They always lose me when they say things like your first house should never be a single family home when you can get away with 5% down or 3.5% down. And it's very easy to sell if something goes wrong. You need to get out from underneath it. You get to lock in what your housing expense would be instead of subjecting yourself to rents that are going to rise all the time. Like Grant Cardone will say that stuff just to try to, because what he wants to do is get you to give your money to him so he can go buy apartments with it. It's not because he actually thinks that you're not going to make money buying a single family house. But so he lost me with that line because so many people have made money with single family housing. I prefer to see people buy single family houses several years in a row using low down payments and conventional loans. And then once they've got appreciation, to sell in 1031 into like a multifamily type of a property. So let the first couple years of your investing career build the equity that becomes the down payment for these other properties, and give yourself time to learn an asset class like that, like how to manage tenants, what you're getting into. You want to make sure you like it. It doesn't work when you're like, hey, I'm going to get really into pickleball because you played it one time and you buy all this pickleball gear. You spend thousands of dollars to get yourself a pickleballer. And then you realize I don't like pickleball that much.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's better to just borrow someone else's gear, go to Play It Again Sports and get started. And once you've decided you want to commit to it, to go in with both feet.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of people miss out on opportunities because they were waiting for that perfect multifamily to come up, and it took them like a year or two, and then they finally just gave up and didn't buy anything and kept renting because in reality, it can be really hard to get into a multifamily property, especially if you're going to be occupying it as your primary residence. Like, first of all, the inventory is very low typically with multifamily. A lot of times you're going to have to inherit tenants. And if you're newer into real estate investing, you're going to inherit tenants that you didn't get to pick and you really don't know much about. Not to mention the rents are probably going to be below market rates, right? And there's just a lot of hurdles to multifamily, especially starting off with it. And a lot of times you shoot yourself in the foot because you're like waiting for the perfect one, but there is no perfect one.
That's a great point. That's what causes a lot of people to not get into the market at all. They're waiting for the perfect time to jump in. Then they're waiting for the perfect asset to buy. Then they're waiting for the perfect deal. Then if they even get that far, now they are waiting for the perfect opportunity to get the seller to come down in price. And they're all reasons that people back out of deals. And I always try to give people the perspective of jump ahead 10 years from now and ask yourself if you'd be happy that you bought it. Because we saw a lot of this in 2016, 2017. They get a house in contract for $600,000. It appraises at $590,000. The seller won't drop the price. And what do they say? I don't want to overpay. I'd rather wait for the perfect deal and be patient. Meanwhile, the Fed's printing money like crazy. And so they back out of the deal so they don't overpay. And now that house is worth $900,000 a couple years later. And you have yourself a nice little DJ Khaled moment where you played yourself, right? You save the 10,000 to lose on the 300,000. And we see this a lot of the time. So you don't want to be reckless and just go buy all kinds of real estate, but it's very easy to get caught up in these details, and it's mostly ego. You don't want to tell anybody I had to pay $10,000 over the appraised price. What you're really wanting is like the opposite of that. But when you're playing the long game and you're thinking about where am I going to be in 10 years and 20 years and 30 years, these decisions become much more simple.
Yeah, and that's with any asset purchases, right? A lot of times it's like, I don't want to buy this asset; it's too expensive, and I need the money for something else. But then when you look back in time and you put the money in, yeah, you're just super happy with yourself and glad you did it. That being said, speaking of investing, we lost one of our most prominent businessmen and investors that maybe the U.S. has known, up there, obviously, with Mr. Warren Buffett himself. But Charlie Munger passed away this last week. Did you follow much of Charlie Munger and his career, or at least the stuff he would say?
I like the stuff he said. And really, it's funny you say that, because he would often give advice similar to what I just said, which was look at the big picture. Stop trying to like outsmart the market. They were very fundamentally sound people. We want to buy good companies. We are way more interested in picking the right company than getting the right stock price. They weren't looking at it every day. Like, what is it doing? Is it up? Is it down? Can I make a couple cents on this trade? They were way more interested in, is the company itself solid with a good future? And we want to buy a lot of that. If for our world, this would be similar to invest in the right market. Right. Krista Seals just mentioned she bought her first property and it made her $125,000 because she bought in the right area. Right. Like that right there will make you much more money than you buy in the wrong area, but you got a great deal on the bad house or the bad area. Right. So thinking like that, I have to remind myself of this, because nobody likes to get caught up in the minutia more than me. You've seen me, Kyle. I love to freaking wheel and deal. And you knew me when I was younger, and I probably talked about that stuff all the time. It's probably annoying as I'm like, yeah, they wanted this, but I got that. And here's the technique I used. And at the David Green team, we study this stuff all the time. We use these negotiation techniques to help our clients. But if we're being honest, they matter this much when you consider how much money somebody could make when they just buy in the right area and wait. So Charlie Munger understood that, and he would often just not get caught up in the hysteria. When NFTs were all the rage, he was like, I think it's stupid. I'm not going to do it. It doesn't make sense. And he ended up looking smart. So the beautiful thing about the era that we live in is we have these recordings of the people like him and the wisdom that they shared that we can listen to and apply to the situations that we're in today.
Yeah, I would say you and Charlie have a lot in common. Like you could be like his spirit animal to some degree. He didn't have a ton of analogies, but he was definitely very witty and wise at the same time. And that's what I like. He kind of would just say it how it is, but in sort of a funny way to make it land a little bit harder, make it stick a little bit better. And I feel like you do the same thing with all your analogies.
Thank you for that. It's one of those things where the medicine doesn't matter how good it is if you can't get someone to take it. So you got to be able to get the kid to actually take the medicine if you want it to have an effect. So I did like to follow Charlie. I felt like he was always a little bit more. He gave you a little bit more than Buffett did. Buffett was just very dry.
Yeah.
Charlie, like you said, could put a little bit of frosting on that bran muffin.
Yeah, I think Charlie had a little bit more relational skills than what we've seen from Warren Buffett. I think Warren is just a very nuts and bolts, extremely dry dude with a little bit of humor, but it comes across much more dry. So speaking of that humor, we're going to share with you some of Charlie Munger's best and funniest moments. So let's watch and we'll talk a little bit about it after.
Those of you who are about to enter business school or who there, I recommend you learn to do it our way, but at least until you're out of school, you have to pretend to do it their way.
People don't seem to get that point. You have any idea why, Charlie?
Warren, if people weren't so often wrong, we wouldn't be so rich. Yeah, I think you would understand any presentation using the word EBITDA. If every time you saw that word, you just substituted the phrase bullshit earnings.
Yeah, it's not that much fun to buy a business where you really hope this sucker liquidates before it goes broke.
I like cryptocurrencies a lot less than you do. To me, it's just dementia. Professional traders that go into trading cryptocurrencies, it's just disgusting. It's like somebody else is trading turds and you decide I can't be left out. I don't think there are good arguments against my position. I think the people that oppose my position are idiots. And so, no, I'm optimistic about life. If I can be optimistic when I'm nearly dead, surely the rest of you can handle a little inflation. And of course, that's the other advice. The best way to get what you want in life is to deserve what you want. How could it be otherwise? It's not crazy enough so that the world is looking for a lot of undeserving people to reward. A director getting $150,000 a year from a company who needs it is not an independent director.
They're looking for chihuahuas and not Great Danes. Yeah. And I hope I'm not insulting any of my friends that are on comp committees.
You're insulting the dogs. Everybody wants fiscal virtue, but not quite yet. They're like that guy who felt that way about sex. He was willing to give it up, but not quite yet. Well, you don't want to be like the motion picture executive in California. And they said the funeral was so large because everybody wanted to make sure he was dead. It was investment banker aided fraud. Now, not exactly novel.
That does not mean we approve of every buyback at all, though. I mean, we've seen.
No. I think some people just buy it to keep the stock up. And that, of course, is insane and immoral. But apart from that, it's fine. And yet it's perfectly obvious, at least to me, that to say that derivative accounting in America is a sewer is an insult to sewage.
I've listened to so many nonsensical cost of capital discussions that
I've never heard an intelligent one.
Yeah. Charlie's big on lowering expectations.
Absolutely. That's the way I got married. My wife lowered her expectations. Sure, there are a lot of things in life way more important than wealth. All that said, some people do get confused. I play golf with a man. He says, what good is health? You can't buy money with it. Well, there are a whole lot of things I don't think about. And one of them is companies that are losing $2 or $3 billion a year and going public. And the people who invented this crypto crapo, sometimes I call it crypto crapo and sometimes I call it, well, crypto shit. It's just ridiculous that anybody would buy this stuff. It isn't even slightly stupid. It's massively stupid. And in accounting, you can do things like they do in Italy when they have trouble with the mail. You know, it piles up and irritates the postal employees. They just throw away a few carloads and then everything flows smoothly thereafter.
Folks. That happened in some unnamed international country.
Yeah, Italy. The general system for money management requires people to pretend that they can do something that they can't do and to pretend to like it when they really don't. I think that's a terrible way to spend your life, but it's very well paid. You are mixing something which is wretched and irrational and has bad consequences with something that has very good consequences. But you know, if you mix raisins with turds, they're still turds.
That's why they have me write the annual report. But
well, I can't give you a formulaic approach because I don't use one. If you want a formula, you should go back to graduate school. They'll give you lots of formulas that won't work.
I love how he's just got the he's always got the Diet Coke right there. Not afraid to say what he's thinking. And you know, the whole cryptocurrency thing, like, he was right. Like, look at it. Nobody's talking about cryptocurrency anymore, like Bitcoin and Coinbase is, I think I just saw something the other day, Coinbase, the big bank or app or whatever, is like going out of business or having to make some big cuts and that kind of stuff. So
yeah, but we mocked him a lot of the time when he was saying it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And that's the problem when you look at when you get hyper focused on the numbers that are right in front of you. Like when crypto was having its big run, every day when you looked at the numbers, you could use that to justify why you thought it was a good investment. Well, look, it's up. All these old guys, they're not paying attention to what's happening. But if you fast forwarded 3 years, you look like a fool. And it's better off when you're having a good run to not give yourself all the credit for it and not think that you're smarter than you are. And when you're having a bad run, to not think that that means you suck and you shouldn't even try. And I know, Kyle, you probably have to tell me this all the time because we're sharing information that I struggle with, that everybody struggles with, that this is kind of how life works all the time. We've had an amazing run in real estate for 10 years where we all look like we were smarter than we were. And now a lot of people are getting crapped on, and there's nothing that can be done about that as the market has taken a turn. And it's easy to give ourselves the credit and ourselves the blame when, if we're fair, we had a great run because we had a great wave pushing us, and now we have a great wave collapsing on our head. Doesn't matter how good of a surfer you are, you're never going to be better than the ocean, right?
Yep. Yeah, no, that's a really good point. And one of my favorite things that Charlie said is, and this is something like we can all base our lives off, is to get the life that you want, you have to deserve the life that you want, right? And so we talk about that all the time, becoming the type of person that gets it, not just sitting around and dreaming and hoping or blaming everything else and everybody else. So good wisdom from Mr. Charlie Munger himself. And I think we got a lot we can learn from him.
And from you. That's a great line. To get the life you want, you need to deserve the life you want. I mean, I'd love it if this channel was mostly us talking about that. Like, would you guys come and watch it if that was what we talked about all the time? Because that's the truth. And that's what none of us get told. We all grew up watching Disney movies, right? Where women got told that you just need to exist. Just wait, and Prince Charming is coming, and he's going to be more handsome than all the other guys, and he's going to be braver than all the other guys, and he's already killed dragons, and he's already fought his way to the top, and he's got this huge castle, and you don't have to do anything to get Prince Charming to love you. You just need to be awake. I guess if you're Snow White, you don't even need to be awake. You just need to be in existence, and he's going to come and grab you. He's going to take you to that castle. Talk about not having lowered expectations. Right? You're going to get crushed if that's what you thought you were going to get. And the same thing, like when we watch those movies as kids, you see the protagonist and you're like, well, I'm going to be the Prince Charming. I'm going to be the person that goes and kills the dragons and does everything. But they don't show you what it's like getting burned by the fire and having to crawl your way back out there and fight again. You don't see getting beat up over and over and over and having people laugh at you and mock at you. If they made a realistic movie, that's what it would look like. It would just be, what was that Will Smith movie, The Pursuit of Happiness?
Yeah. Yep.
That's more like what life is like than the other movies. You're just rejected and rejected and rejected, and you get a glimpse of hope. And just when you think I might turn the corner, boom, you get rejected again. And it's just like never stops. And if you somehow survive that and you can make it to the 12th round, sometimes you get lucky and you land a punch and your opponent goes down and you win the fight. Okay. Like that's what life is, right? But we're all told the opposite. So we see the things that we want and we think in the back of our head that we deserve those, that they're supposed to just be happening. We shouldn't have to do anything to go get them. And then we get bitter because life didn't turn out the way that we thought versus, well, have I become the person that can handle what I want? No, that's why life's not giving it to you. Because I think you've seen that, Kyle. Like when you become the person that is required to handle the blessings that you want, they tend to find you. Right. Yep. You did a buyer's presentation the other day, you said, and the person said to you, you're the smartest real estate agent I've ever talked to you. That is why people will call you. Your phone will ring with people saying, I want you to be my agent. The new agent isn't going to have that happen because they haven't become the smartest real estate agent everyone has talked to. They haven't studied it like you've studied it. They haven't practiced it like you practice it. They haven't thrown themselves into it and failed and got rejected over and over and over. So they don't deserve to have their phone ring. But when you are that person, it really does work that way, right? Like I always use that example of the best tacos in town. You got to be the best taco in town. Nobody's looking for a mediocre taco. No one goes to someone and says, hey, Kyle, I'm new in Laredo, Texas. Where are the most okayest tacos in this whole place? I don't want them to be too good, but I don't want them to be too bad. Where's the mediocre spot? We all say, I want the best tacos that are around. And when you're the best tacos, everyone talks about you. There's a pun there. I didn't even recognize it. They're all tacoing about you, right? So like the key is just to pursue excellence with everything you have until you get to the top and never stop. But that isn't what you get told. And I think that Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger were very good examples of just staying the course. Like I've seen the stuff that Warren Buffett made the majority of his wealth when he was like 50 or 60 or something.
Yeah, it was like late in life.
Way later in life. And he made it a lot during downturns when other people weren't investing, and he would just read an insane amount of books all the time. The dude is still in love with the process of becoming great. which is one of the things that I talk about in pillars. And if you are not in love with the process of becoming great in fitness, you are not going to have a great body. If you are not in love with the process of becoming great with health, you are not going to have great health. If you're not in love with the process of becoming great in relationships, your partner is not going to be super happy, and neither are you. And wealth is no exception to that.
Do us a favor, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button if you're enjoying this. We want to keep bringing this type of content to you. I would say the one thing about the pursuit of the top of the mountain is the illusion that there actually is a top, that there's a summit, that there's a place you're going to get where you can finally relax, right? David used that analogy of the wave crashing on you. I think being that person who deserves it is the person who can then get back up on that surfboard and go find another wave and surf it again. Because I think a lot of times, I mean, unless you get to like Warren Buffett status, like billionaire status, but if you even like listen to Warren Buffett or Charlie Munger and the stuff that they were talking about and that Warren talks about today, those guys are still afraid of like losing what they have, and they're still like looking for the next thing to surf. Both of those guys are going to work, you know, Charlie did and Warren going to work till the day till they die, not necessarily because they feel like they have to, but because of that pursuit. But I definitely don't think there is a top of the mountain.
No, and if there is a top of a mountain, every time you think you get to it, the market shifts and you got to climb another mountain.
Yeah.
It's really just become a great climber.
Yeah, and I think they figured that out right early on, and they sort of just gave into that and just were like, all right, now we're just going to keep climbing. Every single time the market changes, we're going to look to figure out how we can adjust and continue to go instead of getting mad or emotional or whatever. Speaking of money and speaking of high wealth, David, I know you've heard of FI, the FI movement, right? That's the financial independence movement. Then after that came the FIRE movement, the financial independence, retire early movement. Have you heard of the H.E.N.R.Y movement?
No, what's the H.E.N.R.Y movement?
So that's like it's kind of a new subset within the FI community. It's growing pretty quickly. H.E.N.R.Y stands for high earner, not rich yet. So it's the people who are making a lot of money. These are your doctors, your pharmacists, your really, 100K plus earners, but they have no wealth. And so that's actually what we're going to jump into and talk about next. We actually have a video about a lot of high income people and professions are actually having a hard time making money right now. It's pretty wild.
Awesome.
There we go.
It's easier to believe that someone making six figures or multiple six figures a year is or will eventually be wealthy. On the surface, they could look the part: the big home, the brand new luxury car, the recent trip to the Greek islands. However, stats tell a very different story. According to a Lending Club survey, roughly 45% of those making more than $100,000 say they live paycheck to paycheck. 47% of those making between $150,000 and $200,000 a year, and 28% of those making over $200,000. If you're making over $200,000 a year and living paycheck to paycheck, that raises some eyebrows. How could this be? Why are these high-income earners not wealthy? Worse, why are they struggling? So let's delve into some of the reasons why this may be. More specifically, 10 reasons why so many high earners are not wealthy. And hi, if you're new to the channel, my name is Tay from Financial Tortoise, where we learn to grow our wealth slow and steady. The number one reason why so many high earners are not wealthy. This really is the primary reason why so many people with great jobs and great income are still stuck in the rat race. They're failing to convert their high income into assets. Assets that either produce additional income or grow their net worth. Rich people acquire assets. The poor and the middle class acquire liabilities that they think are assets. Examples of assets could be index funds that appreciate, real estate properties that we can rent out, and businesses that generate profit. The issue is that instead of converting their hard-earned income into assets, many high-income earners spend on depreciating luxury cars, expensive homes, and fancy toys. Robert Kiyosaki, the author of Rich Dad, Poor Dad, gives a great illustration of this by drawing out the cash flow pattern of a person who is stuck in this loop, spending all their income and liabilities. Let's say you're a high-income earner, so you have a great job that provides great income. Thus, you have money to spend beyond your basic needs. But instead of buying assets that could grow your wealth, you spend it on liabilities. Mortgage on a big home, car loan on a brand new car, and school loan from your expensive college degree. And as your wages increase, your expenses increase as well because you're continually buying more liabilities to elevate your lifestyle. You cannot build wealth this way, and so many high earners fall into this trap. The number 2 reason why so many high earners are not wealthy. Many are still paying off their student debt. High income doesn't just fall in our laps. Companies are willing to pay you high income because you're providing a certain value, most often value that is earned through high quality education. Take a look at doctors and other medical field professionals. Doctors are paid high income because they're providing essential services to patients. However, in order to become a doctor, one must not only go through 4 years of undergrad, but 4 additional years of medical school and medical residency that ranges from 4 to sometimes 7 years. And all this education is quite expensive. According to NerdWallet, the average medical school graduate owes over $200,000 in medical school debt by the time they graduate. Pharmacy school graduates, close to $180,000. Law school graduates, $130,000. Business school graduates, $66,000. And hear this, dental school graduates, over $300,000. I mean, imagine starting out your career with these ridiculous amounts of student debt, and you haven't even started your retirement account, bought a home, or even had kids yet. I know this pressure way too well because when I graduated from business school over a decade ago, my wife and I were saddled with $105,000 of combined student loans that we had to deal with. Thankfully, we went buck wild and paid it off in 3.5 years, but it is something we would never want to repeat again if we can help it. The number 3 reason why so many high earners are not wealthy. Not all, but many high earners are highly concentrated around major metro areas, aka high cost of living areas. Think of big cities like New York, San Francisco, Los Angeles, and Boston. And most often this is because these are where many opportunities are. If you want to work in tech, you likely need to move to San Francisco. If you want to work in finance, it's really hard to avoid New York City. And if you want to work in film and video production, no better place than Los Angeles. However, there is a cost to living in these areas. It generally takes a lot more money to support a comfortable lifestyle in San Francisco compared to a lower cost of living area. For example, according to data from Rent Cafe, the typical living cost in San Francisco is 79% higher than the national average. That's right, it costs almost 2 times more to live in San Francisco than anywhere else in the US. Utility bills are 32% higher than the rest of the country. Food costs are 31% higher, and transportation costs are 38% higher. So if you're a high income earner, think hard about where you want to live. If your high income is directly tied to your location, it might be hard to relocate. However, if there's some flexibility, you can really do wonders to your savings rate just by willing to relocate to a lower cost of living area. All right, moving on. The theme of high cost of living area. The number 4 reason why so many high earners are not wealthy. Many are saddled with huge home mortgages. Staying with the San Francisco example, according to the latest H.E.N.R.Y report, the median home price in San Francisco is about $1.3 million. And I'm not talking about a mansion with 12 rooms. No, this is an ordinary home with 2 to maybe 4 bedrooms if you're lucky. Do you know what a monthly mortgage on a $1.3 million home would be? For simplicity, let's just say you're able to put down $300,000 as down payment, so you only need to finance $1 million. The monthly payment on a $1 million loan, 30 years fixed at 8%, is about $7,300. And we're not even counting all the additional housing costs, utility, property tax, home insurance. These costs could make your monthly housing costs close to $10,000. When you need to pay close to $10,000 in housing each month, as you can imagine, it's really hard to build wealth. Even if you're making a good salary of over $200,000 or $300,000 a year, more than or close to half of your salary is going into housing alone. Structurally, it's really hard to build wealth when you have a really high mortgage. You can't fund your retirement account. You don't have extra money to invest, and you can't fund your kid's college fund. All right, you might be saying, apart from living in a high cost of living area, why in the world would someone feel the need to buy $1 million home or a multi-million-dollar home? Which leads to the next reason. The number 5 reason why so many high earners are not wealthy. Many struggle with the pressure to look the part. Many high-income earners operate within a culture that oftentimes encourages and reinforces the pressure to look successful. When someone has a title of an executive or a partner in their name, there's a subconscious expectation that this individual looks and lives a certain way. Drive a fancy car, wear an expensive watch, and have access to pricey country clubs. And some jobs actually require this. If you're a partner at a consulting firm, part of your job is to go out and drum up new business, meeting with other executives, most often expensive restaurants or exclusive country clubs. And because you're representing your firm, you have to present yourself in the best way possible. The finest suits and the high-end accessories, even living in ritzy neighborhoods where the customers are. And when you do this long enough, you're conditioned to believe that the high consumption lifestyle, enabled through high income, are expected and necessary. It's a snowball that feeds on itself. In the theme of luxury items, let's move on to the next reason. The number 6 reason why so many high earners are not wealthy. Many are prime targets for luxury marketing. Luxury brand marketers are constantly on the lookout for ideal buyers. Who's willing to spend money on their expensive luxury products? Who has a deep enough pocket as well as the motivation? And who better than high income earners, living in high cost of living areas who want to look wealthy and successful? They're essentially gold mines for these high-end retailers, particularly those that sell luxury brands. Not only are there way more high-income individuals and ultra-wealthy, they have enough money to afford their high-end products.
All right, we'll pause it there. We have a pretty good understanding and idea of what he's talking about, right? A lot of high-income earners have a hard time saving, right? Either because of their lifestyle or because of them getting into the workforce with way too much debt, or just buying houses that are way too expensive that they're living in. And as a result, they don't have any money and they're spending all their money on liabilities. They spend it, they never see it again. It's gone, as opposed to putting it into assets that will grow and accrue and begin to compound over time. And so I think this H.E.N.R.Y movement is actually really, really fascinating and cool to me, because it changes slightly the old Dave Ramsey approach, which is, oh, just get out of debt and, all that kind of stuff. But it's a little bit more focused on, don't let your lifestyle creep, especially if you feel the pressure, and don't, you have to get out of debt. I thought it was kind of funny though. What was the word he said when he was talking about paying off his debt? He and his wife went buck wild. That's kind of like Dave Ramsey's thing of saying, we went gazelle. So maybe that's going to be the new thing. Let's get buck wild and pay off our debt.
I didn't notice that. I didn't know Dave Ramsey says gazelle.
Yeah, he says you got to get gazelle. The reason he says that is like, I think it's the way like a gazelle, it just runs so fast. Or I don't know. I don't know Dave Ramsey well enough. Type it in the comments if you guys know. But
yeah, we got some like Ramseyite out there that knows.
Yeah, he means get intense. But that being said, David, how did you learn to save money? What did you do? Because you've been the kind of guy, you've always kept your lifestyle relatively low and not let the pressures of the world or society or other people, get to you. What was that for you? And how did you do that?
I was thinking about that when I was watching that clip, because he was talking about how most people that make a good income also live in an expensive area. And that makes sense, because the reason you get paid more is because they have to pay you more because it costs more to live there. And then because you get paid more, the restaurants can charge more. So the food's more expensive and the rent can be higher and the property taxes can be more. And then because those businesses are all making money, they can be taxed more. So now the city has more money to dump into infrastructure. And really, you just create this vacuum where wealthy people have to spend more money, and areas where the cost of living is low, so are the wages. It's a rule of nature. It's always going to work that way. So the key is you got to live in an expensive market, but not spend your money. You can't just do what everybody else was doing, which is kind of what I did. I made most of my money working in the Bay Area, so like Oakland, San Francisco areas. I got paid really good wages when I was a cop, or I worked in the restaurants that paid better because the prices were higher, but I was able to keep my expenses low. And then that same principle really applied when I started long distance investing. I'm working in California, making a California wage, but because I don't have expenses other people have, I have more money that I can invest. Well, I went and invested it in markets where that money went further. It was easier to buy houses in Arizona for $120,000 at the time than it was to try to buy houses in California for $500,000. And it is as simple as the fact that, like you said, Kyle, I was taught to save money. And I just don't think we realize you don't figure anything out. You're either taught it or you're not taught it, which is why a lot of people watch YouTube and stuff to try to find that mentor, find that father figure or mother figure, find that person who's going to teach them what they don't know. When I was growing up and we asked for anything, my dad's answer was no. It was always no. You can't have it, right? It was so bad that we just stopped asking, because you just knew the answer was going to be no. And my dad would get angry if you asked for something. Like if we went walking through the store, I see little kids like, please, can I have it? Please, please. And you watch the parent just getting pissed as they're worn down. And finally, they either snap and scream at the kid, or they snap and say, fine.
Yep.
And they're angry, which is their subconscious way of trying to tell the kid, I don't like that you did this. But then they're also buying them the toy they wanted. right? So what is that teaching your kid?
It's
That
not hard to get what you want.
no, you just have to do that. You have to not listen to your parent and you'll get rewarded in a
Yeah.
sense, right? And now you're mad at your kid, but your kid learned, well, it was worth it to get the toy. So I'll hurt my relationship with you to get what I want. And the whole thing's bad, right? By constantly being told, no, you can't have that unless it was like a reason to get it. So a birthday, Christmas, something like that. I learned to fight the urge to buy everything that I wanted. When you see something and you're like, oh, I'd like it, my next thought was, no, don't get it. That is missing with a lot of people. When they see that their friends are renting an apartment and they go look at the cool apartment with the cool view, they immediately just say, can I afford it? Yes or no. If the answer is no, they don't do it. If the answer is yes, they do it. They aren't asking the question, is this the best use of my money? Right? Because when I was trained to say no, when I was a cop and I was working, I was basically like driving from my parents' house to the academy, and then I rented a room so I wouldn't have to drive that far. And I was staying in that room once I graduated from the academy and I started working in the jails, and I wanted to move into a better area, but I didn't want to pay all the rent. So I just heard that some other guy bought a huge house. Everyone was talking about how Juan bought this massive house and he was a single guy. And Juan was nice. And I just said, hey, Juan, I remember the way I worded it. I didn't say, can I rent a room from you? I said, hey, Juan, do you want to make $300 a month for free? And he goes, sure. How? And I said, I'll give you $300 if you let me move into one of your vacant rooms. He goes, all right. Like, he had no reason to say no because he had 4 bedrooms in this house that no one was living in. And I framed it like he could get $300, right? I'm sure the rent would have been way higher than that.
Oh, yeah.
But I just was like, I don't want to pay rent. So if I can keep it to $300 a month, like, that's significantly less. That was a lot of money. And if you take $300 times 12, right? Or I guess if you take the difference of what rent would have been, which was like $600, and I'm saving $300 times 12, that's $3,600 times 3 years. You're talking about like $11,000 or so, just because I framed that question the right way. Now I can save more money and I can work more overtime because I'm sleeping in a place closer to where all the shifts are, so I can get more sleep. It was a good financial thing. But my point is, I'd been taught to tell myself no. I don't just buy things because I can. I only buy what I would have to. And I was just thinking, a lot of those people that make this high income will never be wealthy because no one's taught them how to say no. No one's taught them that you don't have to work a job you hate forever. But if you spend your money on everything, you're going to.
What do you do with the because sort of the next evolution of that, right? If you say no to everything, that's when the FOMO starts to creep in. That's when, if like you're way too stringent on everything, people are like, dude, you can't even enjoy life, right? So like, what do you do to help enjoy life and kind of not feel like you're just suppressing yourself for your whole life?
Well, in Pillars, we talk about when you've budgeted all your expenses, you go through those and you say, how much joy am I getting out of this thing, 1 to 10? Okay, I spent money on this. Like, that's a 6 out of 10. That's a 7 out of 10. That's a 2 out of 10. That's a 10 out of 10. Why not eliminate everything that's like below an 8 if it's just your wants instead of your needs? You're not getting a lot of joy out of it. Don't spend money on it. And don't think about how much does it cost this month. Think about what would it be over 10 years, right? Like that thing that's only $70 a month. You're like, well, what's the point? It's only $70. But if you eliminate it times 12, now you're talking about like $850 or so, something like that, right? $840 times 10 years. Now you're talking about $8,000. And then you start adding up that type of stuff and it starts to become very significant. So I would still want people to spend money on the things that they get a lot of joy out of. I think we can all look back at our childhood and there were certain things that you got your money's worth, right?
Yeah.
That Sega Genesis or that football that you love to play with or something. And there was other things that just sat in the playroom and you never ever touched, right? Well, as a grown-up, we just have more expensive toys. If you love that thing and it makes your life better, don't cut it out. but cut out all the things that are not making your life better, and then put that money towards paying down your debt, which will 100% make your life better when you don't have that hanging over your head. And then take the money that used to go to paying debt and put that towards savings. And that's definitely going to make your life better, because now you're going to have that feeling of security and snowball that way.
Yeah, I think the whole idea of FOMO is really interesting, right? When we have FOMO, it's where we have fear of missing out. What are we missing out? Joy, right? So we have this fear that I'm missing out on some joy that I could be having, but we also neglect the fact that joy is fleeting, right? Like I used to get a lot of joy out of drinking frappuccinos from Starbucks. I don't get as much joy anymore because they just like, they're way too much sugary, too much calories, and like they make me feel full, and they don't make me feel good after, right? So like the whole concept of joy is always shifting and changing and fleeting, and so we don't want to base all of our like financial decisions off of, oh, this thing's going to make me happier, because in reality, like happiness is found kind of within more so than the purchasing of things. But that's a really good way to put it, David. I like the joy index and making sure that we track that.
When I was younger, when I got off work in the restaurants, what everyone else did was they went to party. They went out to a bar. They went to someone's house. They drank a lot of alcohol. They did whatever people do when they party. They stayed up really late. Then they went to bed too late. Then they woke up the next day with a hangover. And then they basically had to just like lounge around until it was time to go to the next shift. So they'd be getting to work and their day was like just starting basically. And it's like a trap. You don't ever get out of it. I should go look for another job. I should go back to school. I should study to get something else. But it was so hard to get momentum when then you're getting off that night. You're like, what am I going to do?
Yeah.
Well, what I would do when I got off work was I hated being so skinny. You remember how skinny I was? I was super insecure about it. I just went to the gym and worked out all the time. So I would get off work. I would go to the gym. I wasn't going to be doing anything else because you're too amped up after a night in a restaurant in a fast-paced environment. Just go home and go to sleep, right? So I was going to be awake, so I might as well get something out of it. Lifting weights helped me to put on some size, which made my life better. I was less insecure. Then it made me feel good. Then I went home and went to sleep when they were all still partying, and I woke up the next day feeling really good because I got all these endorphins from the workout the night before. I have high energy, and now I can get up and go to class, go to school, while they're all sleeping in or skipping class if they were trying to go to school. And then I get back from school and then I can go to work. Like I was in a really healthy cycle where that one decision made my life better. But more so than just that, it made me so that 10 years later, I wasn't super insecure from being so skinny anymore. Right? Like it was a decision that led to me having more joy in my life because I did that thing. And if you look at it like, what am I going to do right now? Usually the right decision seems like the thing, spending money on something stupid. If you think about 10 years from now, it's very obvious that saving in what seems like a little bit amount of money will slowly start to snowball and accumulate big, big differences, especially when you start investing it.
And I think that right there that's maturity, that's wisdom, right? That's making the right decision for your future self. And that's the conversation I have with my kids. They're still pretty young, obviously, but our frontal lobes are not developed fully until we're about 25. And if you're a guy, it's probably closer to 30, right? And if you can just fix that one part of your frontal lobe and be smarter with your savings and your investing, man, that's going to help you out a ton in your 30s and your 40s. All right. So speaking of, David, did you see that the Cybertruck was finally released, or I guess given out to the first customers yesterday? They did
I remember we were talking about buying one of these for the David Green team years ago, and I actually wanted one because it was going to fit that IRS exception where you can write off 100% of the cost of it. We just aren't selling as many houses now to where we need to be driving our clients around in a fancy truck. So I don't know that it makes sense, but I have heard everybody talk about it. What is the reason for the delay?
Oh, just your typical Elon Musk, right? Over promising and under delivering. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. Putting the cart before the horse. And then obviously COVID slowed things down in terms of their ability to get everything on the manufacturing line. They've had a lot of issues, but with getting it through, Tesla is just, their whole parts thing is like literally their parts, their mechanical parts is just a mess. And so they had this huge release yesterday though, and it was a lot of hoopla. A lot of people are excited. They did it in Austin, and so you guys will probably start seeing them on the freeways pretty soon, or as they say on the East Coast, the highways. But we're actually going to watch a quick video here of Mr. Elon Musk himself. It's a short video, but make sure you pay attention to the second half. He's specifically talking about his realization that he's had with AI. The first half, they talk about AI and using copyrighted content. It's a little dry, but listen to the second half. It really is interesting to hear Elon's take and how he's come to terms with AI in the future.
IP issue, which I think is actually something I can say as somebody who's in the creator business and journalistic business and whatnot, or care about copyright. So one of the things about training on data has been this idea that you're not going to train, or that these things are not being trained on people's copyrighted information. Historically, that's been the concept.
Yeah, that's a huge lie.
Say that again?
Yes, these AIs are all trained on copyrighted data, obviously.
So you think it's a lie when OpenAI says that this is not, none of these guys say they're training on copyrighted data?
That's a lie.
It's a lie, straight up.
It's a straight up lie.
Okay.
100%.
So then,
obviously it's been trained on copyrighted data.
Okay, so let me ask you a second question, which is all of the people who have been uploading.
I mean, it's like one every minute. Yeah.
All of the people who have been uploading articles, the best quotes from different articles, videos to X. All of that can be trained on. And it's interesting because people put all of that there, and those quotes have historically been considered fair use, right? People are putting those quotes up there. And individually, on a fair use basis, you'd say, okay, that makes sense. But now there are people who do threads. And by the way, there may be multiple people who've done an article that has 1,000 words. Technically, all 1,000 words could have made it onto X somehow. And effectively, now you have this remarkable repository. And I wonder how you think about that again, and how you think the creative community and those who were the original IP owners should think about that.
I don't know, except to say that by the time these lawsuits are decided, we'll have digital God. So ask digital God at that point. These lawsuits won't be decided before on a time frame that is relevant.
Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
I think we live, there's that, I don't know if it's actually a real Chinese saying or not, but may you live in interesting times, right? Is apparently not a good thing. But I would prefer to, personally, I would prefer to live in interesting times. And we live in the most interesting of times. I think, for a while there, I was like really getting demotivated and losing sleep over the threat of AI danger. And then I finally sort of became fatalistic about it and said, well, even if I knew annihilation was certain, would I choose to be alive at that time or not? And I said, I probably would choose to be alive at that time because it's the most interesting thing, even if there's nothing I could do about it. So then, then basically sort of a fatalistic resignation helped me sleep at night because I was having trouble sleeping at night because of AI danger. Now, what to do about it? I mean, I've been the biggest, the one banging the drum the hardest, by far the longest, or at least one of the longest for AI danger. And these regulatory things that are happening, the single biggest reason they're happening is because of me.
All right. So is it just me? Like, I don't know how to read. I like those glasses. You look like the Terminator right now. Speaking of AI, you're going to come after all the viewers of this video.
That was my nickname in law enforcement, actually.
Was it really?
Yeah, because I have one of those faces that doesn't show emotion. So whenever everybody else was like amped up and like, oh boy, something's going to happen, I had that like stone face, like how in the Terminator they never show emotion.
That's you're looking pretty. Those are the Iron Man glasses too. Those do look good on you. Drop it in the comments. How do you think those glasses look on David? Are they good or are they not good. But yeah, man, speaking of Elon Musk, man, I think it's some pretty interesting stuff. I don't know how to take him sometimes. I don't know if he's being sensational just to be sensational so that he can get more attention and all this kind of stuff. Or do you think it really does truly keep him up at night? Is he like that much of a wizard, that smart? What's your take on this?
Give me a little bit more. Like, what did he say that you're questioning whether he was being sincere or whether he was being sensational?
So, well, he's a sensational dude just by being Elon Musk, right? So he can say things that are that come across as very scary, right? And so he's basically saying, I used to be the guy banging the drum. I used to be the guy who was afraid of AI stuff and wanting to regulate it. And finally, I just came to terms that, you know what, annihilation is going to happen. And I just have to let it be, basically, right? And so he's basically saying to the entire world, there's nothing that can be done. So you might as well just let it be and, and try to get some sleep at night kind of thing. So I'm just curious what your thoughts are, because, some people can take that seriously, or some people can be like, he's just doing it for the attention.
Oh, no, I believe him on that. And that's because about some of the issues going on with our business and my portfolio, things outside of my control that could cause massive, massive anxiety.
Mhm.
Just not wanting to fail, but being unable to do anything to get out off the train track with the train coming right at you, right? And when you are trying to resist something that you can't stop, you do just live under anxiety, right? Like my experience with anxiety was, it's a warning that your body is giving you to get you off the train track.
Mm-hmm.
It just doesn't benefit you if you can't get off the train track. If you don't have control over something that can be done to change it, the anxiety doesn't benefit you. He has been worried sick about the dangers that Elon can see that AI poses, that, if we're being candid, you and I don't have the ability to understand.
Nope.
Right? Like, I understand the concept that AI could be bad. I think Elon can see things that he cannot articulate, because he's that much smarter than the rest of us, about how bad this actually will be and how quickly it will spiral out of control, which I agree with. And it's funny because the people that are not worried about it, of course, they're always it's like the crypto people when crypto is doing great.
Yep.
Well, look around. It's nothing that bad right now. What are you worried about, right? It's when you go to the future and look back, it's kind of fitting for how this whole thing worked out, that you see how dangerous that actually was. So I think he recognized, I can't stop it. He had to just say, worst case scenario, humanity is probably doomed. And then he got a sense of peace so that he can sleep again at night. I do actually agree with Elon on that. I don't think he's being sensational. I think there's certain things that you could see going wrong and feel going wrong, but there's too many variables for you to be able to communicate to other people exactly how it's going to look. You just know it's not going to be good. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes total sense, Terminator. And the other thing too is that really stuck out to me is the fact that he's resigned to that fatalistic view. He knows it's going to happen, and he is trying to still do good, right? He's still like moving forward with all the SpaceX ventures and stuff. And I don't know if you were following. I haven't been following super close, but the whole Sam Altman getting fired as the CEO from OpenAI. So he left, and a lot of the thoughts were, okay, well, Elon Musk knows a lot of people on the board, and it's going to be a potential hostile takeover. But then Sam Altman came back. I know there was like some rumors swirling around, but I would be really interested to see kind of what really went behind that, because part of me thinks maybe that there was some things with the way AI has been developing that Sam Altman was not telling the board members. So, I mean, this feels like a movie, it feels like a sci-fi movie that we're in right now.
Just think about the nature of what we've seen AI do with the little glimpse we've got of Chat GPT. When you're watching that movie, Planet of the Apes.
Oh yeah.
And about the disaster that happens when the apes take over the planet. But in the newer movies, you're like, oh, look, it's the first time that Caesar's learning how to do sign language.
Yeah.
Like, it's cute,
yeah,
because you're like, I didn't think that it could. That's kind of how I see what Chat GPT is doing.
Mm-hmm.
We're all being introduced to this cute little gremlin that's kind of harmless, not thinking about what it's going to grow into. But it's fascinating how quickly the thing can learn and improve itself. Right now, it's still a baby that we have to be like, hey, take a couple steps in that direction, or we have to encourage it to do something so we feel like we're in control. But babies quickly grow into something that you cannot control. That's a terrifying thing about them, is they get a mind of their own and they become people, and then they can do whatever the hell they want and you can't stop it, right? Well, imagine a baby that you can't even influence anymore. That's kind of how I look at what AI is. You can influence it now in its infant stages, but Elon sees it will grow to something that we cannot influence. And the people that do influence will probably be rich, powerful people that will influence to be a weapon that they think is going to serve them. So I think a ton of the jobs that we have right now won't be jobs. As this thing develops, it will just take over a lot of what human beings do. I think that will lead to people saying, well, I can't make a living, so what's going to happen? And the government will step in and say, never fear, we're here. Universal basic income for the rescue. We're all going to send you a check of this much money. Everyone's going to get the same amount. We're going to have equity and equality and all the things that everybody wants all the time. People are going to stop being productive as they slowly just learn to live off of what the government gives them. And then they've lost autonomy, and they will slowly start to be like, well, you have this money, but we don't have many things you can spend it on. You can only buy the things that we've produced for you, which eventually does lead to something like a central currency making a ton of sense, because if everyone's getting money from the government, of course, they're going to want to have a central currency. AI is not going to be only used in America. It's going to be all over the place. So every other country is probably going to have the same problems that we do, or inevitably are going to have it, which means that a central currency would be very likely to happen for everyone going out there. And when you have everything centralized in one place, you can have one leader that steps in and can control the whole thing, which is up to this point has kind of been like conspiracy tinfoil hat people that talk like that. They never make sense. But now that AI has been brought into it, and I see what Elon is concerned about, those doomsday scenarios are actually starting to look like logical conclusions.
Yeah.
That we probably can't end up anywhere else.
Well, and did I hear Elon right when the guy Sorkin that was interviewing him was saying, hey, what do you think about the lawsuits with the copyright issues? And he's like, oh, AI God will be here already by then. The lawsuits won't matter. Like that whole concept, AI God, like that feels like the mark of the beast or something, you know?
Yeah, if you guys, I mean, that's a complicated thing because a lot of people talk about the mark of the beast and everything from a scary standpoint or a conspiracy theorist standpoint. So it's easy to throw the baby out with the bathwater when you hear the way that people portray it. But the Bible does talk about how the mark will be something everybody has to take if they want to engage in buying and selling commerce, right? Well, how would they be able to accomplish that the way we're set up right now? They wouldn't, because if I went to this restaurant where I wasn't able to buy food, I would just go to a different restaurant.
Right.
But if we're all using one form of currency and there's only so many things that are even available to be bought or sold, it would be very easy to force people to take this mark. And that mark symbolizes submission to this power, which is really the problem, right? So it could be like you agree to not fight back against whatever political party has taken power and do what they want. And Elon has also made Neuralink, which I feel like plays into this thing, Kyle. Thank you guys.
Oh yeah, it does. It really does. Yeah.
Weird thing. Because if you guys should look up what Neuralink is, they will be able, I just said they, I sound like a conspiracy theorist too. Technology is being created that will allow you, how do you want to describe it? Like putting a computer in your brain to where I'll be able to communicate without having to use language. I won't have to make sounds with my throat for you to be able to know what I'm saying. I will be able to share thoughts from my computer to yours. Right. So if you are thinking the thought, I don't actually agree with this stuff, I have my own opinion, they're going to know it. People will be able to see that that's what your thought is. And so that scenario that the Bible painted years ago is starting to look like it is much more likely to become something that can happen in reality. You want to share what you got here, Kyle?
Yeah, so we got right here. So Neuralink is an American neurotechnology company developing implantable brain-computer interfaces, BCIs, based in Fremont, California, right in our backyard, founded by Elon and a team of 7 scientists and engineers. And basically what it does, let me see here. It's a neural lace that basically goes into your brain, a digital layer above the cortex of your brain that would not necessarily imply extensive surgical insertion, but ideally an implant through a vein or an artery. And they're actually like running tests on this. You can see right here, they're talking about potentially connecting. It's headquartered sharing the same building with OpenAI, the Chat GPT company. So like these guys are literally right next door to each other, and it's pretty crazy to see what's going. They've been doing some animal testing. It looks like right here at UC Davis, right in my backyard.
On pigs, I believe, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think it was pigs. I don't think it says here, but yeah, I think it was on pigs.
Yeah, that's funny. They're in the same building. Like that theoretical monkey from Planet of the Apes is going to like escape from his little office building and like wander across to the other one and bring AI into Neuralink.
Let me ask you this. They knock on your door, David, and they want to test on you. Would you sign up for it?
I would not sign up for Neuralink. No. But I am preparing for the fact that if you're the person that doesn't get it, because you're like, I won't do that. I don't believe in that stuff. They're not messing with my brain. The problem, I think what Elon's motivation is when computers become this smart and capable, humans have to up their game if they want to win in the fight against the machines. It really is like Terminator, which is funny that that's what you said I look like with these glasses on, right? So like as Skynet is becoming more powerful, the humans have to make whatever Arnold Schwarzenegger was, the T-1000 or something, to go fight them, right? Which is what he thinks Neuralink is doing. It's like taking the power of computing and putting it into the human so that we can be an enhanced version of ourselves to try to compete with the artificial intelligence that is going on. And I think that's why he's creating it. But if you're the person that doesn't get it, how do you compete with all the people that do?
You don't.
Right? When you're going up against a presentation with someone else, and your client says, well, what were the last 4 houses that sold on my street? You go, you know what? I'll need to get back to you on that. And somebody else Googles it in their brain right there, pulls up the MLS. And like, that's what we're living right now. People would hear me say this and they'd be like, that is impossible.
Yeah.
That cannot happen. Right. But I think Neuralink almost already has those capabilities that you can search the internet from your brain without typing anything into the computer, and the person will just be able to say, well, it was these addresses, and then you can ask Chat GPT from your brain, how would you answer this question, and it just tells you this is what you would say, right? Like Elon's whole theory was that we already are connected to computers. Our phone and our laptops are computers, right? But we are slowed with how quickly we can transfer data between our brain and those things by our thumbs and our fingers. Well, if you could just put the thing inside my brain, I don't have to move at the speed of typing or thumbing. And so it's kind of scary how far into this we already are. It just hasn't been marketed yet.
Yeah, I remember when the internet first came out and then cell phones first came out. I was surprised at how quickly I became frustrated at how slow it was. Like when it first comes out, you're like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. I have all this information. But then eventually you want to start speeding up, right? But like you said, we're slowed by either the internet connection or our ability to pull it up on the browser and type it in. And so having that instantaneous feel, like that's actually what we want, right? We need that information quick and fast. I was actually sharing on the Spartan League. It's kind of funny because we have more knowledge than we ever have, but our attention spans are the lowest they've ever been. So we're stupid, but smart at the same time.
Yeah, that describes human beings very accurately. So we've had a big week. There's been a lot of stuff that went on. We lost an icon. Elon Musk is doing his best to try to stand up for the human race against the machines. He had another famous line where he basically said, people asked him, what are you going to do if advertisers stop advertising on Twitter because of, I don't remember what it was, like his political opinion or something.
Yeah.
What did he say? Go F yourself?
Yeah, like 10 times. Yeah.
And they're like, well, what are you going to do if Twitter falls apart because people refuse to advertise on it? He's like, then Twitter will fall apart. Or X will fall apart. Like then that's what it is. I'm not going to live in fear of catering to these advertisers that want to control me. This is the way that it's going to be. I love his attitude of I'll just make a car so good that I don't need to advertise it, rather than living in fear of what happens if the advertisers don't support me. So I would expect to see more of Elon every week saying more wild and critical things. I think that there's a lot of people that are subconsciously championing him as our hero.
Yeah.
Like Elon's the one that's going to fight for us because he's the best version of a human that we have. We're going to send him out, the trial by combat, and then AI is working on becoming the other side of that.
It's a big reason why he bought X, right? Because he can't be censored now. He can't be his Twitter account can't be shut down. And so yeah, I think you're right. I think we are going to be hearing a lot more from Elon and what he has to say. So.
All right, man. Well, thank you for being here tonight, Kyle. And thank all of you for joining us. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, like the video. We would love it if you do that. And join us next Friday where we'll be right back at it.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you next time.